Welcome back, everybody, to the Wandering Samurai Study, in which we review and analyze every single act told in Rurouni Kenshin, and today's act is Act 80, Drawing of the Forbidden. There's a joke in the beginning of the chapter that I want to give a special highlight. It's when Cho is talking about his hair and how it is hair of heavenly fire, and Kenshin mocks it by calling it more like hair of the insane broom. And I'm not entirely sure though, but I think that this is the first time that we've seen Cho's hair be referred to as broom hair. And I think it's really great that it's coming from Kenshin of all people. I don't remember in the anime if Kenshin actually uses this joke, but I thought that this was a great moment of levity, but also it served a story function. This is how Kenshin gets under Cho's skin and creates or narrows the gap between Kenshin and Cho. And if it wasn't for this joke, we probably wouldn't have gotten the elbow in the face that was Kenshin's final attack before the sword is thrown to Kenshin. But anyways, let's get into the chapter summary review, and we'll get into the rest of the chapter. Seiku makes it to the location of his father's final masterpiece as Kenshin uses the last amount of his sheath to stop an attack from Cho by elbowing the broomhead in the face. This was Kenshin's final attack, but it proved futile as Cho gets up again. As hope seems lost, Seiku calls for Kenshin and tosses him his father's final sword, urging Kenshin to use it to stop Cho. However, Kenshin hesitates to draw the blade as he is certain that it will break his vow to never kill again. Cho taunts Kenshin for his hesitation and turns his attention to Iori as he demonstrates how to kill. No longer able to hesitate, Kenshin lunges towards his enemy, calling out his attack and strikes fear into the assassin as he unsheathes his attack on him. So the first thing that we're going to talk about are some words spoken by Seiku's father. The swords I craft will create a new era. And these words have always bothered Seiku, and I think that I know why. I believe that the reason why Seiku was always bothered by these words was because of the men that he would see use his father's swords. These people would show up and only use the swords to hurt people, to kill people. The type of people that would show up at his father's place, location, and buy his swords were the kind of men like Cho, just these crazy madmen who have bloodlust. But I think that Kenshin was the ideal man. He is the man who is going to create the new era. And now Kenshin is the one who's trying to protect this era. Seiku was never able to understand this because he never saw somebody like Kenshin until now. And this is the reason why Seiku, instead of plunging himself forward to go save his son, he instead turns around and runs towards his father's final masterpiece, putting his trust in this person who his dad may or may not have believed would be the one that would create a new era. Men like Kenshin would be the one that would create this new era. And now he's going to take a chance on Kenshin and try to give him what he needs so that he can protect the era that they currently live in now. And I think that Seiku feels that giving him the sword will not only save Iori, but will also save the lives of many others. And it's also possible that Seiku kind of played it out in his head and realized that if he went in there and saved Iori and got out of there as fast as he could, they would have to go run away and potentially be hunted down by Shishio's men or by Cho. And here is a chance for somebody to take down Cho right then and there and bring peace to his life. As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, the joke was great because it narrowed the gap between Cho and Kenshin. This really was Kenshin's final effort to take down Cho. And what I really liked about it was Kenshin kind of playing a little bit mind games. Like, he kind of knew that Cho is a little bit narcissistic and that he could get under his skin and tell him, like, and mock him, and that would be the way for Kenshin to get in there, narrow the gap between them, since Cho has been able to take Kenshin without so much taking a step towards him because of the design of his blade. And this is something that it's not out of nowhere. we see that Cho is very sensitive about the way people treat him. When Kenshin was ignoring Cho in the last chapter or the chapter before, when he was trying to talk to Iori to assure him that he was fine, Cho was absolutely livid and told Kenshin that if he doesn't pay attention to him, he doesn't respect him, that he was going to kill the child. And that was when Kenshin had his big scary face and his battle face, as Cho called it. So when the elbow in the face knocked Cho down and brought a moment of levity, when Cho opens his eyes and that panel where he is upside down and smiling with his eyes open like, you did not do this, that was terrifying. And that was such a good way to create dread. I really liked that panel and the way that it's all leading up to the sword being thrown towards Kenshin, and how Kenshin was at his wit's end at that moment. The next thing that we're going to talk about is Kenshin's hesitation. All of the cards have been played out. Kenshin no longer knows what to do. He did his last ditch effort at Cho and it did not work. The man got back up again and he's smiling and he's convinced that he has Kenshin beat. Seiku throws the sword, Kenshin takes it and he's hesitating. He does not know what to do. I've always been kind of puzzled by Okina speaking in this moment, because he is the one that's kind of filling in what we're all thinking. Like, he's explaining Kenshin's hesitation, that Kenshin is in a moment of do or die. His heart will crumble if he kills once again, if he breaks his vow, right? How does Okina know this? The only thing that I can think of is that Okina knows this because of the spy network, or possibly from the conversations that he has had with Kenshin since the two have met, that he's kind of filled him in exactly on everything that's happened. But I don't think that Kenshin is the type of person to just lay it all out there for somebody that he's just met. It's probably the spy network, but nonetheless, it's great narration by one of the characters, and it needed to be done. It needed to create the tension that was already there. Somebody telling us why this is such a pinnacle moment in this battle. But speaking of why this is such a pinnacle moment and the hesitation, and why if Kenshin kills again, that he'd just go back to being an assassin. I've never really understood this. This has always just been some ambiguous threat that exists in the narrative, that like Kenshin will lose all agency over his mind, that he will just go back to being a killer. Like the only thing that I can kind of think of, or I guess I can kind of compare it to, is when Inuyasha would go into his demon form and he would just lose all sense of himself. Or like when Agumon instead evolved into Skull Greymon instead of Greymon, and you know, it was the dark Digimon, the dark evolution, so he just had no sense of who he was. Like, the only thing I can think of, but it just doesn't seem like that's something that exists in the Rurouni Kenshin universe. So, I don't know. What do you guys think? What do you guys believe could potentially be why this is such a hard moment for Kenshin? Let me know down below in the comments. I'd really love to hear your guys' thoughts. But before we move on, Kenshin's hesitation and the crumbling of his heart, I thought it was just like this beautifully elegant way of talking about the state that Kenshin's in. But I think that this is something that will be further elaborated on and further explored during the reflections part of the story in the Jinchu arc. I think right now it's just kind of laying out the seeds, but I think that once we get there, we'll really start to understand. And once we're there, we will talk about Kenshin's fragile heart and what it means to be in Kyoto, I guess. We will see it firsthand. And finally, this whole hesitation just creates good drama and a good cliffhanger, because Kenshin lunges forward, calls out his attack, and we have no idea what is going to happen next. It's beautiful. This was such a great chapter, and why the New Kyoto arc absolutely fumbled this. But the dread, the drama, the like swinging of Kenshin's heart being a pendulum. I don't even know if I'm like quoting that right, but I just can't wait for the next chapter. And finally, there is a Secret Life of Characters page for Cho. This isn't the end of Cho, but this is the end of Cho's significant relevance in the story. And the only thing that is really worth noting is that Cho is a scrap design for when the author was creating the beginning of the story, and this was a reject. Apparently, he kind of took the same base, changed the clothes a little bit to kind of match the character that he had in his head for who Cho is gonna be. Cho is supposed to be from Osaka, which they speak in the Kansai dialect there, and the anime adjusted this by giving him a southern accent to kind of sell that that Cho is from a different part of the country and that they speak differently there. I thought that was great in the dub. I believe that in the manga, he actually gave him the Kansai dialect, and that the author used some of his assistants to help with that dialogue. But the English translation in the manga, the actual official Viz translation, did not make up for this, and his dialect is just read as regular English. But anyways, this has been chapter 80 of Rurouni Kenshin. What did you guys think of this chapter? I think this was a phenomenal chapter. I loved the cliffhanger. I loved just the dread, the tension that was created here, and we're gonna see it all resolved in the next chapter. I will see you all then. Bye, cha.